This is Rabio the City, Mr. Real Enough Talk Talent, Reggaeton Directo, La Promo. Y we are back. But this is interesting, people. We are back with another member of the IronLords Podcast, lordsofgaming.net, con el hermano gemelo de Pitbull. Dale, hueva. Así, mi gente, ya saben, vamos a hablar con él acerca de esto. The man that is the single player experience of the club, the one, the only, directamente desde Miami, no, I'm just kidding, directamente desde Puerto Rico and New York, Lord Sovereign.
Oma, what's up, man? What's going on, man? I tell you this, man. Just give me one of Pitbull's checks, just one check. For one show, and I'll be happy. I'm happy the rest of my life. That's all I need.
You'll take the first check he ever got, because just with his first check, I'm more sure that he makes more money than the both of us together.
No, I'm good. I'm good, man. If he could just slide me that check, I'm good. I'm a happy man. I'm good for the rest of my life. So I appreciate that. You know, I haven't shaved, so I don't really look like Pitbull today. Me parezco un viejo, pero you know, pero fantastic to be here, brother. Thank you so much for having me. I know you've had King on already. It's a pleasure to be here. So happy to talk to you, and so glad that you want to talk to us, man, and learn about our stories and the stuff that we've done and how we came to the IronLords podcast, because it's an interesting story, man. A lot of friends don't stay together in this way for so long. You know what I mean?
That is so true, man.
So it definitely is. So thank you. I appreciate being here, brother.
No, man, and the pleasure's all mine. It's like when I talk King, you know, I'm gonna be very truthful. I am the kind of person, you probably say I'm grumpy and all that, but when people say influencer, I'm like, yo, the only person that influences me is God. Nobody else influences. Yeah, so when they're like, yo, do you know an influencer? I'm like, yo, that is somebody that is getting paid to sell a product to you.
Yeah.
So when I watch you guys, I'm like, yo, these guys are genuine. You know, these guys are here to entertain with the wisecracking, with the jokes, with the back and forth, with the fraud alert. And I was like, yo, I'm gonna have to start going to Sundays, have to go to church early, and then be ready. Look, why? I totally forgot daylight savings times ended or started, because it started for me. And
exactly.
I was here at 11 o'clock ready, and I'm like, what's wrong? And it says 12. And I'm like, oh my God, it's daylight savings time.
Espérate.
I hate daylight.
Yeah, man, yo me quedé. Mira, cuando pasa eso, I'm normally like somebody like on a Friday afternoon will tell me, hey, remember daylight savings time? Remember daylight savings time? This week, no one said anything. Yo no sabía nada. And I was like, wait a minute. Y ayer, da la suerte que estaba viendo, I was watching Narcos, right? I was watching Narcos, the whole new season, brand new season. I've been binge watching it. 10 episodes. I watched the whole thing in the matter of like 2 days. So I'm up and I see the clock. I didn't realize the clock changes. And I'm like, wow, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. So when I look at my phone, it says 2:58. And I'm like, what? Wait, what happened? I'm like, wait a minute. So I look at my stove. So the stove doesn't change automatically. I look at the stove and it was an hour ahead. I was like, okay. I had no idea. Usually I'm on top of that. I had zero idea. So I was happy because since I stayed up so late, that little extra hour of sleep. Yeah, it helped today.
Yeah, well, it helped today, but tomorrow and the day after, ahí es que yo buy like, oh, what's happening?
Exactly. Esa la voy a pagar, that's for sure.
And you're like, thank goodness for analog technology in that stove, because if not, you would have been like, did I fall into a temporal rift? And when I come outside, is everybody gonna think I'm Pitbull and start asking for autographs?
I wish, bro. Like I said, one check. That's all I need.
Hermano, if you watch this, don't leave your brother hanging. No seas así, hermano.
Solo simple sencillamente para que le dé el autógrafo a mi esposa, because she is a Pitbull fanatic, big time fan. You know,
she was a fan back in the beginning when he had a little bit of hair.
A little bit now, no, only bald Pitbull, because I guess I remind her that's that's why I don't fight, you know what I mean? And she lets me look at his dancers too, so you know it's good. It's all good.
Like, you're my Pitbull, he's my Pitbull. I'll let you watch the dancers just because
exactly
you guys were related, but you never know. You're probably related. You know, I was talking to King when I talked to King, and people, if you haven't watched the episode, when I was talking to King, his grandmother's last name is the same last name as my grandmother, and I'm like, you never know.
Exactly. Yeah.
You never know. So he's probably.
Oh yeah, bro. Tú sabes cómo es eso. You know how those relations go, man. You be like, espérate.
You're like,
yeah. So I definitely get. I remember when I was young. When I was young, my dad, he used to take me to baseball games, right? And I forgot it was. He always told me that we were related to Joaquin Andújar because someone Andújar, and I'm like, oh my God, Joaquin Andújar. It wasn't until later that I was like, he's Dominican. How we relate? He used to be like, oh, after the game, I'm gonna go down and see Joaquin, right? I'm like, all right, cool, let's go. Oh, I can't believe it. You're gonna take me to see Joaquin Andújar. I'm like, yeah, why are you lying to me for?
I had the same problem when I was younger. When I was younger, my grandma would always say, hey, I'm gonna present you your tío, Toño Rosario. And I'm like, oh, Rosario, we family. And then like, and then I find out later he's Dominicano. I'm like, all this time
how does that work?
All the time I was at school saying, yo, mi tío Toño is gonna come one of these days and he's gonna start singing to you guys. And they were all laughing. And I'm like, yeah, he's not family. But
aunque tú sabes, la sangre caribeña, you never know, man. We island hop all over the place anyway. So
you know it. When those Españoles came here, we don't know what Indian or Tainos, because some, just por si acaso, some people don't like the word Indian. So los Tainos jumped to the other islands. So we don't know. We're probably Cuba, República, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, La Isla Bini. They're probably Españoles. We're probably all men. We probably all man. We don't know that.
That's what makes us special. That's what makes us special. I firmly believe that, man. Like we're such an amazing mix. Like it's Latinos, period. So yeah, very proud of that. A lot of people probably don't even know that. I mean, they know it. They see me on the podcast, but since I never really speak Spanish, not even a little bit, you know what I mean? So it's like, I had a lot of people was like, I didn't know you were Latino. And I'm like, what?
I had the same problem too. When I spoke to you the first time in the Twitter and the messages, when you responded to me in Spanish, I was like, wait, does he got a Google Translate or something? Because that can't be.
Yeah, man. No, my Spanish has improved a lot because I'm born and raised here, But when I met my wife, ella de Puerto Rico, and para nosotros cuando los conocimos, eso era como que I was like literally had the translator because I wasn't, it took me like 2 hours to write one paragraph, right? But as you start, being with somebody more, whatever, you just get better at it. Y ahora tú sabes, el español mío fluye. Ahora fluye, y sabes, antes no tanto.
Antes you were like the commercial of Inglés sin barrera, but the other way around. You were like
the other way around. Inglés the other way.
Poquito. No. Poco.
No, fíjate. In my family, I was the one that always spoke it the best, right? I always tenía el acento correcto, whatever. Pero it was just so much Spanglish, right? That you never really learn it well, right? So when I met my wife, her English wasn't very good. So we Spanish was the middle ground. So I was like, okay, I have to communicate this way. So I learned to refine my Spanish from her, pero yeah, it was, a lot of Spanglish in the house,
and I imagine it's still going the Spanglish way. That's something. Oh yeah. It never changes. I have the same problem when I speak to my families. These are the family members that are in the States, because Puerto Rico, for those that don't know, Puerto Rico, it is a part of the United States, but there is like a 3%, but it's growing little by little, of people that are like fully understand English.
Yeah.
A lot of people in Puerto Rico, even though we are American territory, do not speak English at all. So when I came to Puerto Rico, I had the same problem when I made it here. When I made it here, I was like, I had this guy, his name is Pedro. If he's still alive, hi. And I would call him, I would say, Pedro. And he's like, ¿Qué tú me dices a mí? I'm like, Pedro.
Pedro. Ay, Dios mío.
I didn't know how to say Pedro. So I was like, Pedro. And he would always want to fight with me. And my cousin's like, no. He don't know Spanish. Don't fight with him.
My wife gets on me because when one of the first things I said to her, we were talking about Elvis Crespo, right? So yo decía, I said Elvis Crespo, bien proper English. And she's like, ¿qué? No. We were talking about, the little incident on the airplane with him.
Sí. Cuando le decía suavemente.
So I said Elvis Crespo, being prim and proper. She's like, what? What? Elvis Crespo. And I'm like, okay, fine.
No, I had the same problem for those that follow reggaeton.
Right.
Over here, they call her Evie Queen. But for me, it's Ivy Queen. So to me, it's written Ivy Queen. So every time I would say, yo, you listen to Ivy Queen song? King of Hesa. I'm like, Ivy Queen, Evie Queen. And I'm like, yo, you guys pronounce things so weird at times. I just can't, because I think in English and then I say it.
No, chacho. It's one of those things like también Evie Queen is one of them también, because I would say Ivy Queen, but now I just say Evie Queen. Another thing is Roosevelt. I would say Roosevelt. I was like, ¿qué? Roosevelt. And what? Is that? Where'd you get Roosevelt from?
Here in Caguas, there's a street called Calle de Getois because it's French. Here they call it Calle de Geto.
De Geto?
And I'm like, where does it say de Geto? It says de Getois. It's French. Calle de Geto. And I'm like, I ain't gonna fight with you guys no more. You guys got your own proper way of saying things.
No, bro.
I'll just follow you.
The last one I'll mention is when we were talking about Star Wars, I said R2D2. And she's like, que Arturito? ¿Quién es Arturito? I'm like, wait a minute. No, this is like you're killing my childhood here with this. But it's funny. We laugh about that stuff.
There's another one you probably do not know because you probably didn't watch cartoons back in the day. But, Fred Flintstone. And he was Fred Flintstone. So when I would talk to kids, yes, I'm like, where does Fred turn into Pedro?
Exactly.
Pedro is Peter. What in the world? It's incredible. Yeah.
That's bro. Those are things that it's funny because we laugh about it, but I think that's what makes my relationship with my wife so fun, and is that we we can laugh about those things, and it's just like that's who we are. And it's such a sometimes people get offended by like stereotypes or whatever, but stereotypes are funny because they come from reality, right? They exist because they're rooted in reality. So it's funny. We laugh at that stuff, man. That's our culture. It's a very specific thing when you're Puerto Rican and you're also a New Yorker. There's like a very specific sort of upbringing that you had, words that you use and stuff like that. So yeah, man, I love everything about, kind of who I am and where I come from.
That makes it interesting. And yeah, it's like you said, the relationship that you have, it's always, you're never going to have a bored moment because there's going to always be something in specific that you saw one way and she saw another one.
Oh, what? Yeah, man. Listen, I think if we've argued 10 times in our entire relationship, I think it's a lot, es mucho. Pero a long time ago, I told her something and I said, pa que lo sepa.
Don't you say that to me.
Bro, and I literally meant, so but it wasn't meant as anything. Muchacho. She's like, ¿qué tú dijiste? ¿Qué? And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm never using that again.
I've had the same problems when I communicate to my girls. That's not like when I communicate to whoever's my girlfriend, past, present, or obviously not future, because I already know.
In the moment, yeah.
There's always a certain sentence that when you say it in English, it doesn't mean nothing. But if you say it in Spanish, they'll be like, so you're gonna leave me? And I'm like, whoa. I never said that. The way what you just said, even if it's translated, it means this. I'm like, oh,
Oh,
okay.
now I know.
I know
You
to
live
never
and you
say it
learn.
to you or to say to anybody in the future. I ain't gonna get in
Never
trouble.
again. Nah. I got in trouble for not quite understanding how certain things are perceived. So
But I always say it's not my fault. You know,
yeah,
I'm from Philly, and in Philly, when
yeah.
my cousins, my brothers, and all that would speak Spanish, you know, it didn't have that meaning. So to me, it doesn't really mean nothing. And then they're like, oh no,
Is there any? Is there any like Philly isms that are different? Like when you talk about like a Puerto Rican from New York, you have certain like isms, right? Is there anything specifically like how people speak in Philly? They kind of changes certain things about like the Spanglish that you would use over there.
But the Spanglish over there in Philadelphia, it's a little bit like in Michigan. You know,
Okay.
it's like more colloquial. You know,
Okay.
they don't use like in New York, in Miami, and New York and Florida, and in Puerto Rico, they tend to cut stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
En vez de decir vámonos para allá, pues vamos.
Mm-hmm.
O
Right.
vamos. So in Philly, you know, you say the full word.
Okay.
Like the proper.
The proper way of saying it. Yeah. That's another thing I learned from my wife because again, you know, the Spanglish, tú cortas muchas palabras, muchas frases, las corta, you cut them and just very short. And she speaks very properly. So it's one of those things. It's like you know, like I learned like finish your words, like, you know, make sure that you enunciate properly. It's fun. It's fun because my Spanish would not be where it is without her.
Like, you know, Miss Sovereign, you should your husband has properly explained to the world. But if not, his Spanish would be terrible, and his parents would desheredarlo for not speaking Spanish.
No, wait. I'm the only one that's like my brother barely speaks it. They both understand it. My sister speaks it and understands, but she's more like the word. She doesn't sound like it comes naturally to her when she speaks it.
Like slurs it.
Yeah, and then my nieces and my niece and my nephews, like they really don't like they'll understand certain things but they don't want to. Like my small nephew, when my wife tries to talk to him in Spanish, he's like, Titi, in English, Titi, and she's like, no, Spanish.
You know what the really funny thing is? Over here in Puerto Rico, when I try to talk English to my nephews or
Right.
young cousins and all that, they're like, aquí se habla español. Aquí se habla español. No estamos en Estados Unidos. And I'm like, yo, I'm just trying to help you learn.
Exactly.
Because if I don't do it, nobody's going to do it for you.
Y sí estamos en los Estados Unidos. So it's like good both things. You know what I mean?
I said that once in school.
Oh my God.
They almost kicked me out. They're like, no, we're not. And I'm like, yo, people, you are a colony of the United States since the 1918 something. And they're like,
man.
You can't stay out here. Get out of my class.
I'm not saying I'm happy with the way the situation is. I'm not saying that, but it is what it is. Like, you know.
I'm like, I do not like the way that they were working off the ELA. We could find a better solution so that people in Puerto Rico can live a better life.
Yeah.
But this is the truth, and like it's the truth, and I'm not afraid to say it. Then I say it, and I got kicked out. Yeah. She got mad at me because she was independentista. She hated the states. So when I say that you are part of the states, yeah, I got in a lot of trouble because of that. But
yeah, I mean, I get it. I get it. But yeah, exactly. The truth is what the truth is. Yeah.
But you know what the really funny thing is? After Hurricane Maria, the island was busted up. Right there, a lot of people found out that Puerto Rico and the United States are one.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that when I say, I live in Puerto Rico, they're like, oh, you live in a third world country? And I'm like, no. I'm like, I live in a country that's governed by the laws of
exactly the laws of this other country, and that have citizenship in both, essentially. You know what I mean? Like it's yeah. I mean, listen, like I'm not a fan of the situation and how it is. But again, there are advantages, right? When you talk about, you know, the disasters that have happened there over the past 5 years, you know, even though the help has not been what it should be,
We know
how it
whose fault
should
that
be.
was, though. Not gonna mention names, but we know whose
Yeah,
fault it was.
yeah. I'm not gonna talk about warehouses that miraculously got opened up and all of a sudden, like, tons and tons of supplies.
Before we continue, the
Mhm.
day the president came here to Puerto Rico, I was still in Telemundo,
Mhm.
and
Uh-huh.
I was hit with a toilet paper in the head. So
Are you serious?
for the people that said I was lying, I got hit by one. He
Yeah.
did come here and started throwing toilet papers at people. Ah, take this, take this. I got hit
Yeah,
by
that
one.
that
So
was that was
I saw things could be better. Things could be better here, but it is what it is, and it's not going to change to people stand up.
it's it's not going to change until real change comes from within.
That's true.
And that situation there, unfortunately, despite the attachment to the United States and maybe the opportunity and ability to maybe be a little more kind of organized, the sort of the corruption of what happens in small nations still kind of permeates what happens there, which sucks because you don't want to ever see that, and it just sucks, man. You look at all these like small nations that you have essentially dictators in place, so you have all this other stuff going on, and that's not PR, but
It's very similar.
but exactly when it comes to who holds power, that stuff just gets recycled between the same people over and over again. So yeah.
And I know people from the States that they told me, but yo, you got the choice, you got the chance, you got the choice to choose who's going to work for you. I'm like, yeah, that's the big difference. But
That's a big difference.
No matter who we vote for, we always find the same thing because they find a way
right
to take money for themselves and then like, yo, this is the best job in the world. I just come here and do whatever I want, take all the money for myself.
Yeah, it's sad, man. It's sad. That stuff needs to be regulated. But at the same time, it's like, when you think about it, like, it shouldn't have to be regulated because it should be human nature to make sure you take care of one another, especially, that's what gets me sometimes. Like, el puertorriqueño, bien orgulloso, ¿verdad?
Yeah.
And I muchos people that live by that and really mean it. But I see people a lot as well that, they always pro Puerto Rico, this, that, and the other, but they don't do anything. Nothing about their lives and what they do indicates that they really care about that. You know what I mean?
Just blah, blah, blah.
It's a lot, blah, blah, blah. And I tell you, like, for me, like, my wife really turned the corner for me on that sort of stuff, because again, she's from there. She loves it and adores it. And she's objective and understands the problems that are going there. But at the same time, it's, de corazón, tú sabes, from the moment she's born, that she's always going to love and support.
Yeah.
But she's not blind to the hypocrisy of things as well. And for me, I was blind to it for a long time, right? Or just kind of, when I was in college, I paid attention, I cared about it. And as I got older, I was like, I stopped caring about it because it just seemed like it's all the same stuff over and over again. But then, again, when you marry somebody that's kind of that is them, that's the life they've known since they were born, you start thinking about it again differently. And it's just like to see the state that the island is in and where it could be. There's positives and negatives on both of that. But I think for me, it's like, there are a lot of things that are disappointing and I would love to see better, but it's a matter of, it's got to come from within,
There's no choice.
There's no choice. It has to really come from within.
Nobody from outside can. It's like when we get to these kind of problems and all that, the only thing that the United States does and can do is help you economically and help in the infrastructure, but they have no power to come to the island and say, this guy from the government, you got to come out. They don't got that power. Mm-hmm. Only thing they do is take the money and please use it the correct way.
Yeah.
That's not gonna happen. Not even what we have with these people that are over here that they're trying to. La Junta came over here, and as soon as the Junta saw it, they could take money.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they stand for left.
Yeah, it is that thing. It's unfortunate that people, rather than see the opportunity to sort of grow things and build and improve, unfortunately, you see people just see the opportunity to line their pockets. And it's just like, how can you do this to your own? Like, knowing the situation that is going on, knowing the conditions, like why, how could you do that and good and look at yourself in the mirror at night? It's, again, but that's corruption, that's politics, unfortunately. And again, in these small sort of nations, that's kind of par for the course. That's how stuff is done. And it's scary to think about, man. It's scary to think about.
I do know though how they go to sleep and how they look at themselves in the mirror with the money going like,
yeah,
I look good.
Yeah. Use the money to clean the mirror off. Make sure all the streaks are gone.
Oh yeah, exactly. The $100 bills and put it back in the pocket.
That's good. Exactly.
El mundo en que vivimos. So, yo, Lord, well, the Lord Sovereign, where does it come from? By any chance, and I'm not saying that this is true, did it come by an AI, artificial creature that turns human into robotic beings that has to do with the franchise from Mass Effect?
Not at all, bro. Not at all. All of those, anybody who's ever used the Sovereign or Sovereign in that as like a noun, they owe me money. Because I've been rocking with Sovereign since very, very early on.
Since before Xbox Live.
Oh yeah. I've been rocking with Sovereign since Tekken days. Tekken 1, Tekken 2, Tekken 3 on the PS1 days. So the Sovereign name came from the fact that you hear us all the time on ILP talking about how big into Tekken we were. Tekken was like life for us. Like Tekken and the wrestling games were very competitive. Yeah, exactly. So when it came to Tekken for us, that was our favorite because Tekken, the button layout in Tekken was very intuitive. It was very like each button corresponds to a limb, your left hand, your right hand, your left foot, your right foot. So when you fought, it was very intuitive how you fought, and you could fight like a very like sort of intelligent game where it was like you could peck at somebody, you could do different little things. It was one of the deepest fighting games we've ever played. Up to that point, we played a lot of Street Fighter, right? And that Street Fighter is a deep game, but at the same time, it's like that 2D plane, right? Yeah. Exactly. So the 2D plane made it that you think about it differently. Then all of a sudden, Tekken now we got to worry about 3D space, right? So we got big into Tekken. We got really good at Tekken. So as we got better, like in our group, there'd be a lot of smack talking or whatever. We have Exactly, still doing it. So for us, we had to come up with like these monikers for they kind of sounded like dominant for us, right? Mm-hmm. So like he came up with Cognito, and he also called himself like the Northern Leg because he was good with harangue. So he used to like those leg characters. Like my brother, he came up with the demoralizer because my brother was always very good at just beating you down, and like he in terms of like he would not let up. He's that type of player. So for me, I was like, all right, I gotta think of a name that's like dominant. That sounds dominant for no reason. I want these guys to be mad at me when I beat them because they don't want to lose to this dude named whatever. So I'm looking, and I see the word sovereign, right? And the word sovereign on its own doesn't mean, it just means like, you're kind of in charge of something, with a country or whatever the case may be, or you're independent or whatever the case may be. So I was like, just like with like the Los Condados in Nueva York, right? The Bronx is the only one with a "the" in front of it. Exactly. It gives it a little bit extra like oomph, right? So I was like, what if I just call myself the Sovereign? Like that just sounds dominant in a way. Like you don't want to be beaten by some dude named the Sovereign. So I took the name and I brought it in one day. I was like, yeah, I called myself the Sovereign. They were disgusted with me. They did not want to you don't want to lose to somebody named the Sovereign. So that it stuck with me. That has been my moniker since then. And it was funny is like, I don't know if you remember the show Hercules, The Legendary Journeys with Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah,
Kevin Sorbo. So I remember why I used to love watching that show. And there was a point where he got some sort of like an evil doppelganger, right? Yeah. And the evil doppelganger's name was the Sovereign. I'm like, hold up, man. Somebody's tapping my phone. somebody's taking my stuff, you know what I mean? But I was like, it was funny because it was the first time I had seen somebody like I had seen it acknowledged that name just sounds dominant in a way that's just it makes people uncomfortable. So I saw it then, and then obviously, like when I first played Mass Effect,
you know it.
and I'm like, I'm loving that story, I'm loving that game, and when I get to the point where they introduce this AI, this ship, and his name is the Sovereign. Oh man, that, to me, yeah, that you know, all of a sudden that game shot up all the way up to here for me. So, you know, so that's the origin of the name. We picked it as like a kind of like a crap talky type thing for Tekken, where we, you know, you try to, you know, show up your opponents with this dominant name. And Sovereign just stuck. So when I came onto the podcast and everybody's like Lord this, Lord that, so I'm like, well, I already got mine. Sovereign. I got mine, Lord Sovereign. It's funny because it's like saying sovereign twice, like Lord, or whatever. But to me, it's just it fit perfectly. It fit perfectly. So I was like, I have my name already.
It doesn't matter because they're you go to this people at Realeza and they're like, this is Lord King something, and then the name. So you're like, I'm Lord Sovereign, so I'm the Lord.
It's hilarious because it's like it's one of those things that I noticed the first, like when we first started, people were reluctant to say the names because they're like, why are you being called Lord? Like, what does all this mean, right? and it was I was reluctant to use it as well too because you know, it was Cog and King that were really on the, now we gotta use the monikers, make sure we refer to everyone as Lord or whatever, because that gives us our identity as a show, right? Where everybody who comes on the show, they're a Lord or a lady, you give them the proper respect, whatever. And it's just part of what we are and what we do. And it's cool because it's kind of caught on, right? Obviously the Lord stuff came from, you know, the IronLords stuff came from Destiny, right? So and then it evolved into what, you know, what we are now. But it fits perfectly into sort of, you know, the whole mantra of who the IronLords are. So yeah, Lord Sovereign it is. It's probably going to be that way to the day I die.
I'm more than sure because if you the good thing is, would you guys add in the word Lord in front of the other name when you Google it? It's gonna go directly to you guys.
Oh man, yeah, the SEO is beautiful.
Perfect. It's perfect. It's like when I started to do music, I was called Randall. That was it. And then out of the blue, 7 months later, came out a guy called Randiel, and then from a girl called Randall, and then came a girl called Rindel. And I'm like, okay, I want to fix this problem. Ravi O the Assassini. There is no way in bloody hell that
nobody's gonna come up with that. Exactly.
They're gonna come up with that. And if they do, I will sue them. Because nobody's gonna come out with anything like that. It's like you got Lord Sovereign, Lord Cornito, Lord Attic, Lord King David, which he's got two real
exactly. He's got two royal things going down there.
So you and him compete for the royalty seat.
Yeah, it's funny because that's the name that he picked as well. Like King, like that's always been his thing. Like I'm king on the top of the heap or whatever. So that's a big dominant name. Like it's just a big dot. So when it came to, and it was funny in Tekken with him because he liked to take like Eddie Gordo or Tiger.
He was a cheater.
The capoeira.
That's cheating. Yo, King, you are a cheater. Anybody that played this Eddie, all you have to do is hit like 2 buttons, he would start rolling around the floor.
And he was real good at just getting you with that. Because if you let the talking get to you, and then on top of that, King wasn't a scrub, he was good. So on top of that, it was just over. Like if you let him mentally get to you, he would be bouncing you all around the screen with Tiger and Eddie Gordo. And you don't want to see that. You don't want to see some dude named King with an afro just beating you up.
You do not want to do, but still, Eddie, come on, man. That's like playing Dead or Alive and playing with the Drunken Master, which he'll be right down, and then you go running, and he trips you over with his leg. He jumps back up and no,
because you could just bash buttons and something hot is gonna come out. You know something hot's gonna come out.
Exactly. That's a sneaky Eddie Gordo. Yo, I used to play Tekken with a pal of mine, PlayStation 1 as well. And every time we played, we said, You're not going to use. We cannot use Yoshimitsu. We cannot use Konoichi. We cannot use Eddie. We cannot use the Brazilian girl. We're like, these are the characters that you cannot use because it's too easy. Now, when we played Dead or Alive, it was the same thing.
Right.
You can't use Ryu. You can't use Ayane. You can't use this. And I'm like, okay. Then I'm like, okay, well, then in Dead or Alive, I'm going to beat you to hell with, oh, gosh. I forget the names. I will like, okay, I'll beat you down with Tina. I'll just grapple you and throw you everywhere around.
Grapple you up, yeah.
And I'll be like, run.
My favorite in Dead Alive was, and then no way, Tina's like the grab characters, right? So that's a funny thing too, because in Tekken, King was my main character for a long time, right? And I had to learn how to be like a pecker with him, because the King early on didn't have the hands really to compete with a lot of the other sort of like straight up kung fu characters, right?
Grapple.
Exactly. So it's funny because it's like I learned to be like a real like a peck character where I would just interrupt you and then do things to you to get you to where I wanted to grab you, right? So that was my whole MO with King, right? Until Tekken 3. With Tekken 3, they finally gave him some hand skills and they gave him counters. So now he had counters to sort of counteract people's legs and punches. And then he had his own punches as well, in addition to the grapple. So for me,
it was dangerous.
It was dangerous because I could interrupt you and peck at you the way I used to, but now I could attack you as well. So it was that back and forth. And then my favorite move was the rolling death cradle. The rolling death cradle was one of the most difficult moves to pull off.
But if you did it, it was over.
It's over. It's over. So, Tekken for me, but when it comes to Dead or Alive, though, Bayman was my favorite dude. The military dude, Bayman, I love Bayman. Same thing, because he had the grapples, a lot of different change-ups from the grapples.
He was very, very, and Dead or Alive is like a game of chess. Either you could counter any punch, but if you were going to counter a grapple, you had to counter it with a grapple. So you had to know your opponent very well.
And kind of anticipate what was coming. Yeah,
exactly. My cousin, I hated him. If I beat him 3 times, it was mucho, because of the same thing. He had Bayman. So then when I would come running, he already knew what I was going to do is a tackle. So that was reversal. And then Bayman, if you were good with Bayman, you would grapple them, and then you could continue grappling in the arm. And I was like, yo, let me go, let me fight, man, what's wrong with you?
Nah, man, those are those combos you got to learn. And that's the thing, though. That's what people got frustrated with me, because I learned all the different permutations of, because you have a starter, right, for the grapple, and then you have like different things you could do out of that. So you always had to switch it up, because they're going to learn how to get out of it, right? So that cat and mouse game, that back and forth that we loved with those games, man. The fighting games for us, fighting games, period. Like we played every fighting game. Like we played, I remember we played, what the hell was it called? It was like Star Gladiator. We played that as well. That was like a Capcom game. We played obviously Soul Calibur and Soul Edge and all that stuff before that.
So
Virtual Fighter. Yeah. Like
I call Soul Calibur the weaponized Tekken.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
That's what it is. It's the weaponized Tekken. Do you remember? I don't know if I'm saying the name right, but it was called Brutal Fury, I think it is. That you were fighting, turn into like a big wolf or.
Oh, that was why can't I remember the name right now? We talk about this game.
Brutal Roar.
Bloody Roar.
Yeah, Bloody Roar.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we played Bloody Roar as well. We played every fighting game that came out. I think we played, because we were just so enamored with like 3D fighting games, right? We're like, okay, which ones are these good? We played Bushido Blade. We played Tobal #1. Remember Tobal #1? It was like it was like kind of like Dragon Ball. It looked like Dragon Ball.
Do you remember on the OG Xbox was called Tai something?
Oh, Tai Chi Fist of the Lotus or something like that.
Tai Chi Lotus. That game was insane too. I was the same. 90s, 80s, beginning of 2000. Yo, there were so many different fighting games, and they were so intense that one's like, what's happened to fighting games? You know, now you see one every like 3-4 years.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
I think the craze around it has died down because there's so much like when it comes to there's a lot of esports stuff around like Guilty Gear and obviously Street Fighter. The rumors are that we might get Marvel versus Capcom coming back. So the esports stuff is so strong around that it's hard to compete.
I do got an issue. Whoever's making Marvel vs. Capcom, if you are hearing me, well, obviously it's Capcom. Marvel vs. Capcom, please make it like Marvel 1 or 2. I don't want no Marvel 3. I don't want the other one of the Infinite Stones because I did not enjoy it. You give me Marvel vs. Capcom 2 style, I'll buy your game even if it's in $70. Yes, King, I'll buy a $70 game.
I think that's what they were talking about with that rumor. I think they rumored, I don't know, M2 are the guys that do a lot of like upscale ports or whatever. They're very good at porting old games. Like that's what they do.
That's a job.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's a rumor that they're bringing 2 back, right? I think there's a rumor that they're bringing 2 back. They bring 2 back. That's the perfect way to sort of segue to hopefully a new Marvel versus Capcom. But I'm gonna be honest with you. I like those games because they're cool, they're flashy. But I want like a true Marvel superhero sequel, like Marvel superheroes one-on-one fighting. Yeah. I want that
arcade
like
type one.
The Marvel versus, like the Marvel vs. Capcom stuff is cool, but it's just so much stuff going on that I never feel like I like a fighting game where I can sort of like I can take my time, look at my opponent, see how I attack them. I like more tactical stuff and not to say Marvel vs. Capcom isn't tactical, but it's so fast and frantic that it's just different.
Marvel vs. Capcom, I have the same issue. People fight against me in Dead or Alive and they hate me because me in Dead or Alive, I get you a Tina, I get you a Christie, I get you. I got a lot of different characters that I will combo break you. But when I get to Marvel vs. Capcom, there's people that button mash and
a lot of hot stuff comes out. Yeah, exactly. And that's fun because that makes the game more appealing to everybody, right? If you could just go in there and just press buttons and be successful. But man, I like a fighting game that's more like focused, but I would love to see that game come back though, because there's so many people that want to see that game come back. So I hope it happens.
Hopefully. Yeah. Cause since Disney bought Marvel and all that, we lost our opportunity to re-download it on the Xbox account.
Yeah, unless you have your 360 and you never uninstalled it, then
I still have it
in trouble.
I still have it installed. The problem is I don't think it turns on. So I missed that game, but hopefully these people do that game.
And then trying to get it for Dreamcast it's expensive.
Oh, chacho, olvídate de eso. It's
exactly.
Trying to find a Dreamcast. You'll find the Series X and the PlayStation 5 more cheaper than you'll find that stuff.
I mean, you can find the console pretty cheap, but I mean, pretty cheap meaning like $150, $175. That's what you'll get it for. A lot of that, we have the specialty stores here in New York, a couple of ones that have a lot of them. But but you can get them like modded to work with HDMI now. There's a lot of different things you could get them kind of switched up on. But the consoles aren't as difficult, but the game, the game you're gonna pay through the nose to get that game.
Yeah, because the people gonna say this didn't exist in the digital era, baby. You want it, you gotta have it physical, and I'm the only one that's got it. Sad.
Got you. Yeah, got it.
You want this? Sell your car, sell your house, and sell your
exactly, and forget about Christmas. Christmas.
So your kids, the Santa fell off his trineo, he couldn't make it home. So no. It's incredible. It's unfortunately, but it's incredible. So
it's true.
I want to understand now that you explain a little bit about your gaming history. Why are you the single player guy of the IronLords podcast when you just told me you have brothers and you play with other people? Because when I was thinking about this in my head, I was like, he was probably the single child of his family, so he was into single player games. So does that mean, and I'm not implying, does that mean that when you had your Nintendo, you would tell your other brothers, yo, I play first, you wait your turn?
That is true.
But Mario Brothers has a single player. You got Luigi. Who's Luigi? Who's Luigi? You ain't playing. I'm done.
Luigi doesn't exist. I don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, for me, I had, I have a younger brother and a younger sister, right? So growing up for us, the first thing we had in the house, like we got access to like in television and Pong. We got to play that elsewhere, but we didn't have. The first one we actually got in the house was the Atari 2600, right? So the gift was essentially for me, right? Because I was the oldest, but we all played it, and I was fine with that. But what happened is that you get to the point like where my sister kind of broke away from video games. She wasn't playing video games so it's really me and my brother playing the video games. My brother's always been much better at games than me. Like he's a savant when it comes to video games. He's super good. So I used to get mad when he would beat stuff before me, right? So I would put on arbitrary rules as the older brother. I get to play this first or whatever. Just being a bully of an older brother.
Taking care of your power.
But, exactly. You gotta take control of that. So it came to stuff like that. Yeah, I usually played stuff first, but 9 times out of 10, he played second and beat it farther than me because he was just good like that. Yeah. So that was that. So I've always played multiplayer games. When I talk to you about Tekken, obviously there's a lot of competitive stuff. Tekken, the wrestling games, Halo. We always played multiplayer games, but I like playing multiplayer games with my friends right there with me. Like back then there was no internet, whatever. We were playing co-op or versus in the same room. Everybody's hanging out, talking, whatever. Yep. And I've always loved that dynamic. So that was multiplayer gaming for me. Yeah, that was multiplayer gaming for me. Now the thing is, when I wasn't opposed to the internet, so Xbox Live and stuff, I wasn't opposed to that. But what's funny is that like at that point in my life, I got married very early, right? This is my second marriage now. I got married very early. That first marriage, I got married super young. It wasn't great. There was a lot of stuff that happened negatively in that marriage. So for me, when we talk about going to Cog's house and stuff like that and having those Saturdays and whatever, that was the escape for me from all of that. Like we've been
that young. Was that young?
Yeah, I got married at 2021, right? So, you think you know everything. And the fact of the matter is that at that age, you still have so much more growing to do that you don't know the person you're going to be yet, right? You're still sort of formulating that. That's true. So, it was a learning experience. The one thing I always take away what I learned from it. But it was a difficult time for me. So I kind of needed my friends. And I'm the type of person that I'm not, at least at that point in my life, I wasn't the type of person to sit down and have that conversation with you. Like, yo, man, I'm going through this, whatever. Now I'm older, you realize the value in doing that, right? But back then you kind of hold everything in. So it was just my escape from that.
That's just in the Latino blood. Latino men specifically, they're like, yo, I can't do this because I look weak. And to get that out of your head, you do not express yourself. So yeah, I understand.
And it's funny, but to me, it wasn't even me thinking overtly like I'm looking weak. It's just what I'm used to doing, right? I'm just used to keeping it to myself and handling it, right? So I needed that sort of camaraderie with my friends that I go every Saturday. I can escape from the stuff that was happening in my private life, and I could just have fun, play games with my friends, and that was it. So when Xbox Live came along, I was still going through that stuff, right? Yeah. So
you were like, I don't want to stay home playing.
Exactly, because at that point, I'm online, yes, but I'm still in el ambiente that I don't want to be in.
You're not fully immersed. You're like,
exactly.
I'm not into the game. I'm like, I'm there, but I'm still here, and
I'm still here.
Yeah,
and I needed that. I didn't realize that I needed the comfort of just them being there and making me forget about everything that was happening. So for me, it was a shock because I'm like, damn. And everybody was so excited to be able to stay home. I didn't want to be the one that like, oh, I don't want to do this, whatever. And it was just a point in my life that I was in. So what happened is I played a lot online though. Like I played like Rainbow Six. I played definitely Halo. Like I was online when it came to that sort of stuff. But all the other stuff, like the smaller stuff that started coming to online or whatever, things that weren't shooters necessarily, I sort of started to draw away from, where everybody was caught up online and they made friends in these communities. And I was like, I started to isolate a little bit from that, you know. And again, the situation at home wasn't great until that ultimately ended, but that was years later. So by that time, I had found my own little niche where I'm like, I always liked the single player stuff. I like the narrative stuff or whatever. But now it's like I sort of dove into that stuff to escape, because, and this is another thing, right? Besides the not getting what I wanted from that camaraderie through online gaming, it was just the thing where, again, the Wild West of the internet back then, when it first started Xbox Live, you know, a lot of racism, a lot of like crazy stuff going on. And at that point, I've always been kind of like a laid back, calm dude. Yeah. So I don't want to jump into a chat with all my friends, right? But then there are other people in the chat that start, you know, talking all kinds of other stuff that I don't care about, or I'm not about that or whatever. And then you have to either deal with it or go. And my thing was like, I'm not about this. Yeah.
You know what? That same issue you're saying now is an issue that I have. There's I don't remember the name because I really don't play a lot of Call of Duty, but there's a specific mode in Call of Duty that you can't do party chat. So you have to talk with everybody. Yeah. I cannot stand that mode because I always have the same problem that the people that play with me, they speak Spanish. So then you got these people speaking Spanish, and then you got these other people speaking English. And then when you start talking and all that, there's like, oh, what is wrong? You Mexican? I love Mexicans. That's what they say. Oh,
but that's the thing things that people say. You know what I mean? And back then, it was so unregulated. Like it was wild. So I was just like, I'm not about this, because again, I'm not happy in my situation at home, and I'm gonna go online to get abused too.
Even worse, yeah.
And it's like, so I just receded from that. I was like, I'm kind of good, whatever. I'll play Halo with the boys or whatever. But I little by little, I just started focusing more on the single player stuff, and that's kind of just been where I'm at now. Now, when it comes to now, right? Because obviously, again, we chilled out for a lot of years, and as we got older, people started having other relationships or whatever, and you don't hang out as much, right? And we sort of break off a little bit, and we lose touch a little bit. So coming back, you know, when I come back to the podcast space or whatever, and they're like, you know, why are you so focused on these single players or whatever? It's just been that's what my comfort is now, right? And my comfort food is sort of diving into these either story-based games or open world games and sort of like losing myself. I'm very much into, like, if I'm playing a game, I want to have my headphones on. I want to be focused on the story, the dialogue, everything that's going on. Like, I love to be focused that way. Yep. So that's just kind of what I evolved into being. I still love multiplayer stuff, and some stuff I will play with the boys, but it's very rare. In addition to that, because I work so many hours, it's hard for me to kind of keep any real schedule when it comes to gaming. Like, these guys get to game every single day. I game maybe one day out of the weekend, and that's it. Monday through Friday, unless I'm off from work, I'm not gaming. So it's like, you know, when these guys are all into Destiny and stuff like that, I don't have a prayer in trying to keep up with them.
It's impossible. So it's
like, so I'm like, I'm not even going to try. So that's where my focus on single player stuff has come from. And I love it. I love it because it allows me to focus, even though I don't have a lot of time to game, but when I do, I like to sit down and, like, I just put my headphones on and get immersed completely in the world that I'm playing in. So that's really where the single player selfish experience comes from.
So your single player selfish experience, it came based off of a way to escape from the harsh realities of the times that you were living.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. Like I said, if anybody asked me for advice on on marriage stuff and like relationship stuff, I would say, right, and this is me personally, I know a lot of people are different, but I would say, don't think about getting into a serious relationship, i.e. like a marriage or whatever, when you're in your 20s, like early 20s or whatever. Don't. And I say that because, it's one of those things where it's like, you're going to change so much from your 20s to your 30s you're going to be kind of a different person in a lot of ways. And we don't realize that in the moment, but hindsight is 2020. And when you think about it, it's like, I'm such a different person. And the thing is, you're going to grow with that person that you're married to, or that relationship that you're in. What happens is sometimes, though, if you don't necessarily grow on the same path, you could just grow apart. And it's true. And that's what happened with me and my ex-wife, where it's like we were just on different wavelengths, and it took some time to realize that. And what happened was there was just a lot of friction for a lot of things, a lot of different things that created friction, that as we're growing and changing and becoming different people, the things that were important to me when I'm 20, all of a sudden when I'm 26, 27,
that is important.
Not even close. And then, her thinking was the same, where the things that I thought were important weren't necessarily important to her. So, my thing is that I know that there are plenty of people who get married super young and they stay together forever, and it happens, right? It happens. But it's not an easy thing to do. So, my advice would be like, hey, by the time you're in your 30s, 30 to 35, you have an idea of what you want out of life, right? What you've been through some stuff already. You've lived a little bit. You have an idea of what you want your rest of your life to kind of look like, and you're going to go out and seek that. So it's different because now you're going to focus on being with somebody who kind of fits that mold. And that other person, if they're in that same age range, are probably thinking the same way. So, that's for me is the biggest lesson that I learned from that. Like, you have to be patient in terms of like finding love and a partner and stuff like that. Because a lot of times when you're young, you think you know everything. 100% you think you know everything, and you don't know a damn thing.
Always.
And it's always the case.
And what you're saying is true, because my cousin, she married her school time love, but she didn't marry until she was 33. So she was with this guy since they were 18 all the way up, right? Because it's like you were saying, you have to truly go through the process with the person that you want to be to see if it's gonna click. Yeah. When you are young and you are kids, you both are going to be like, let's party, let's hang, let's drink, let's do that. And then when you start growing, there's going to be one person going to be like, yo, I want kids. And the other one's like, well, I want to keep hanging. And then this one was like, well, I want to play video games. And this one was like, well, I don't like you doing that stuff. And it breaks apart. It breaks apart completely. For me, when I got married that young, it kind of made me scared. It made me a little bit nervous. So I was so focused on being a good husband and a provider. Yeah, the perfect one. Right. That, I kind of matured super fast for somebody who was 21 years old. And a lot of things we used to do literally when we're dating to the moment we got married, there was a switch where I'm like, wait a minute, now I have responsibilities of rent, a home, this, that, and the other. Well, things got changed. Right. It's a different level of responsibility. And for me, I know some people could balance it and still, for me, it changed me because I'm like, yo, I got to provide. Like, I got to be, and not that she didn't work at things like that, but I was the responsible one. And I knew that. So I'm like, okay, I gotta look at things differently. So it was just, like I said, you become different people, and there's so much evolution that happens from 20 to 30 that it's just like, it's something that it's going to happen. Don't fight it. Don't think it's not going to happen to you, because it is going to happen to you. But again, like any human being, like you could be told a million times, this is going to happen. And you're going to have to live through it to really understand it. And, hey, I'm great. It was tough. That whole segment of my life was very tough, but I'm grateful that I went through it, because I am who I am today because of that. You're the product, an alternate reality where Lord Sovereign was not married at his 20s, he would probably be right now. Yeah, who knows? You never know. You never know. For me, the gangster stuff, it was always around, right? You grow up in the Bronx, and it's always around. And we were very close to it. Like, I had guys who lived on my floor who were just like, when you talk about the 80s and the 90s, the guys that were kind of selling drugs on the street there were big time. A lot of them had real money, real connections with providers and stuff like that. So
the stakes on the street at that point in time were kind of crazy, and it was very, very dangerous, and it was very easy for a kid like us to either fall prey to it, or kind of get mixed up into it. Thankfully for me, in a lot of ways, like I said, I was close to it, but the way my family was with me and my brother and my sister was that my parents were like, no, you're not hanging out. There's no hanging out going on. Like there's no hanging out in front of the building, in front of the stoop. You're not doing that. When you go out with us. And if you go out to your friend's house, it is literally like a play date. Like you're going to go, you're going to hang out for extra.
This is over here.
Exactly. It's like, yo, and in the same way, like I remember when Cog used to come to my house, my mother would treat it kind of like a play date where it's like, hey, you guys are going to be here for X amount of hours. You can play your games, whatever. I'm going to make dinner. I'm going to make sure you guys are fed or whatever. And, you know, she would call Cog's mom and be like, hey, he's on his way back now. You should be there. You know, it was one of those things where it was a very controlled environment. So my parents, like, they knew what we were growing up surrounded by, and they were very good about keeping us away from it in a way. Like Cog had more freedom than I did. A lot of other of Cog's friends had more freedom. King obviously had more freedom. So they were a lot more susceptible to that stuff day in and day out, where I was a little bit sheltered from it. Yeah. But at the same time, like I said, in any moment in time, you could fall victim to it, right? Because there's a lot of innocents that got kind of caught in crossfire and stuff like that. Or as an act of rebellion, right? As you're getting a little bit older, you're becoming a teenager, you become rebellious, you think you know everything. As an act of rebellion, it would have been very easy for me to just jump into something like that as well. So, you know, I'm grateful for the upbringing that I have. And you don't realize that till you're older. You're like, thank God you guys were this way with me. Thank God that Cog's mother let us hang out in that house, because you just never know.
Yeah, just like I said, you know, in an alternate reality, it's like the same thing with me. When I made it to Puerto Rico, like I explained, I didn't know nothing in Spanish, because you know I was a kid from Philly that at the age of 5 I moved to Baltimore, Maryland, and then out of the blue I get on a plane and I land here. I did not know nothing, so I used my cousin Emmanuel. I used my cousin and a couple of kids that we knew. And it was like every Friday, it would be like from Friday to Sunday, we would stay at my house or we would stay at my cousin's house. And it was just me, him, Joel, Jota, Marcos, you know, it was like 8 of us. And we would go home. I would take out my Xbox. You know, I've always been like this. I would bring my Xbox. My cousin would bring his PlayStation. He was a PlayStation guy. I did not have it. Like I told King, my first PlayStation is a PlayStation 5. I never had to have one before, because really? my cousin was the one that always bought it. So right. We would always stay together. So I'm like, yo, you buy the PlayStation, I buy the Xbox. That way we don't have to waste. We don't gotta waste money, but like you said, times change. He's got kids. He's got married and all. So I had to partake and get a Sony console, because if not, there's no other way. So from Friday to Sunday, it was just us 8. You know, if it was at home, my mom would cook and she'd be like, yo, you guys can play, but after certain times, please do not make a lot of noise, because if not, I will put you behind. So we had that camaraderie, and that kept us away from the drugs and from the alcohol, because whoever knows, the Puerto Ricans love their alcohol. And I know, yeah, y Bacardi and there's roncaña and Christmas. Oh hell no, yo! I know kids in this island that from the age of 7 they're already drinking. So I was like, yo, let's stick to our video games. Let's have fun. Let's have our battles between ourselves, and that's what kept us like in the straight path. But probably, if that was not available, if my mom didn't allow us, and Emma's mom didn't allow us, and they would be like, no, you know, I don't want you doing this and this. You never know what it could have been of you, because thanks to that, you had something to unwind. You know, you like Monday to Friday going to school, and you like, yo, I need some time to chill. You know that when Friday makes it, you're going to be with your guys. You're going to have some fun. You're going to play video games, watch a movie. Yo, you know,
Yeah, man. It was always an event for us, and you know, it was one of those things. Like if we, especially if we had like, if it was like a fight weekend, or
oh,
we sometimes it was one of those things like you're watching the fight, and then eventually in Cog's sort of space, he had like two rooms. So it was one of those things like if you didn't want to do what the part of the group was doing, you could go into the other room and do the others. So it's
oh,
like there was always something for somebody to do, whether it was like linking up the consoles to play Halo or playing some fighting games or wrestling games. You know, Cog had the stand-up arcade games. He had Shinobi and Rolling Thunder, so you could like literally play arcade games.
oh.
You bring your PSP with you. We were playing stuff, you know, head to head like a Wipeout and stuff like that. Like there was always something for you to do, but it was just that environment. You're like, I'm amongst my friends. I know, like whatever the case may be, I'm in a safe place. And a lot of times, you know, it'd be funny because I call Cog like the great negotiator, because Cog he's always been real good at negotiating. And there'd be a lot of times like we'd be super loud, or we'd be cursing too much or whatever. And it's funny because his mother would come up halfway up the stairs and she'd call his name out, and he know he come down to talk to me. And he'd come back and he was like, hold on, I gotta go handle this. And you know, I know for me, if that happened in my house, everybody's gone. Like if that happened in my house, my mother's like, everybody's gone. Or maybe we get one warning. With Cog, you know, he just sweet talker. Like it was one of those sweet talking things. He'd come back with, listen, man, gotta keep the volume down, keep the cursing down, but you know, whatever, we keep going.
I secured us to keep playing, but you know, next time he comes out that stairs, you're all gonna get kicked out of here.
It's a wrap. So yeah, man, it's funny how many people, since we started the podcast, have told us that their experiences are similar, right? Because when you're doing it in the moment, you're not thinking that everyone else is doing the same thing, right? Your experience is so unique to you. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe, because again, we went out, we pulled our money together to buy TVs, extra TVs, so that we could play Halo System Link, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a person that I don't like moving my console. From the moment I get it, I'm not about moving that console. I like my stuff where it is. I keep it nice and clean or whatever. I made the exception for Halo, where it's like, yo, we need the extra consoles, man. You got to bring your consoles. I'm like, all right, fine. We'll do it. That's how much that experience mattered to us. So it's very cool that so many people shared the same thing, because again, all across the world, you have people the same thing. Like, hey, man, I get together with my friends. And a lot of times the friendships that you forge doing things like that, like playing games, seeing each other day in and day out, those are the friendships you have for the rest of your life. Yeah, that's like family. Like when I think about King and I think about Cog, that's family to me. You know, that's family to me. And obviously Addict now, because Addict, you know, I'm the type of person that if those two guys vouch for you in any way, shape, or form, you're good.
I'll take their word. Yeah,
exactly. That's your family. But it is that sort of thing where it's like it creates camaraderie that it's hard to break. And for us, it was that plus that dynamic of like comedy and stuff like that, like all the smack talking, and then you have King bringing it to another level. He comes in and he makes us even all more competitive and more sort of willing to sort of defend ourselves with words and stuff like that. He changed the dynamic a lot, and again, a lot of those lessons that you learn, you think it's just gaming in the moment or whatever, but you think back in hindsight, it taught you how to be an adult. It taught you how to be a man in a lot of ways.
That is true.
And it's like those things, what's sad about now is that those experiences can't be replicated today. They just can't. They won't be replicated today.
They're dead.
They're dead. Yeah.
I told the kids that I know, you know, nephews and stepson, I told them, yo, if you guys would do the things the way that we used to do back in the day, that we would all like in one place, no cell phones. It was just us, the TV, us. The controllers. There was nothing to interfere with us. There was no bing. Oh, let me check to see what this guy said on Facebook. There was nothing. It was just directly, you know, I always say, I wish you guys would experience these kind of things, because yo, it's just things that I always tell my cousins, yo, if I could, you know, live in a time bugle, buckle, whatever, I would just live in this time. You know, it's online gaming is cool, but it's missing that union and all that. I play with my cousins.
It is
super tight and all that, but when we play video games, unless there's a crazy glitch or something, we don't laugh. Now, but when we were playing in person, because I have una anécdota of this is to our friend Joel. We were playing Halo 3. We were playing System Link, so there was only one kill missing. So I told my friend Joe, I'm like, Joe, get down. I got a clean shot. And he's like, I told him in English and I forgot. He's like, ¿Qué tú dijiste? And my cousin Jason says, shoot, shoot, shoot. Bang, I shot right through him. You heard betrayal, game one. And like, those are things that you just can't live anymore, man.
Wow. Yeah, because again, you get ribbed in person. You get ribbed in a way like it's not gonna happen the same. It's not gonna happen. And with us, again, that was the beauty of the experience, because you knew, like, if you smack talking to dudes right next to you, win or lose, you're gonna have to pay those consequences, right? That's whatever it is, that eso no se queda así. Oh, and it's just one of those things, like. The online dynamic doesn't have that. It just doesn't have that. And in that idea, like I said before, of other people being able to get in on it, it's just like it changes the dynamics completely. So for me, like I said, I'll do it when like we'll do a stream, like we did Chivalry the other day as a podcast, and that was funny because it's just just murdering people and whatnot.
That game's just insane.
Exactly. So stuff like that, and obviously I'm gonna play Halo because Halo, that's my heart. So I'm gonna definitely play Halo. I don't know how long I'll be. The first couple of days you try to be in there and engage or whatever. But again, eventually my schedule, my schedule catches up with me, and it is what it is. But yeah, man. So I come from the multiplayer stuff. So it's funny that they call me the single player selfish experience, because that's what I gravitate to more. But I still love that multiplayer experience. But it's just the online stuff isn't so much for me.
Yeah.
And it's because of that. It's because and I still feel the same way in a lot of ways, which is weird, because I'm happiest now in my life that I've ever been. Like I'm happy, like nothing could touch me. You know what I mean? But it's just that idea of I've learned to love those single player experiences so much and what they bring to the table that when I do have free time to play, I want to immerse myself in that.
That's true.
So yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
That's why I bought these babies for. They're like, you bought it to play online? I'm like, no, I bought this for when Hellblade 2 comes out, I can start hearing the voices right in my ear.
Exactly. Oh my God, bro. That again, that's one of those experiences that you can't have any other way. You can't. I don't care what kind of speaker setup you have in your house. That game needs to be played with headphones on for you to understand a little inkling of what she might be going through, right?
Exactly. It's the only way.
And it's the only way. It's the only way. And for me, like, again, those experiences, I cherish them so much. And it could be a AAA game that gives me that experience. Like, I talk about Red Dead all the time, but it could be small experiences too that do the same thing. That just sort of immerse you. I remember the first time I played.
When Hellblade came out, it was not AAA.
No, not at all. Not at all.
AA, because they didn't have the backing. But you were gonna say Garland by chance?
Yeah, I got it when it first came out on PlayStation. It was PlayStation first, and I'm like, all right, it'll probably come to Xbox, but I'm not gonna wait. I want to play this game. And I threw those damn headphones on, and I was like, what the hell? And it was like, yeah, because I'm like, it's this woman who's tortured, and you don't know what's real and what's fake. You don't know if it's all a dream, if it's all in her head. But it's like the way they represented that idea that, that she's kind of on the brink of losing it was so well done. And I'm like, wow, man, like this is why I love that immersiveness. Like if you're talking to me while I have my headphones on, I'm gonna look at you like this, like, yo,
you not see what I'm doing? I had that same problem. I'm playing the game, and I'm like here, like, yeah. And I like what?
It's funny because it's funny because my wife, she's like, when it comes to stuff like that, she's like, I'm going to talk to you. I don't care. I'm like, all right, babe, but understand where I'm coming from, right? I
understand that I'm not listening to you. Hey,
but
continue. Right here in the background. Right here in the background. What are you doing? We're live, people. This is what's the really funny thing is the same thing I told King.
Exactly. Shout
Every
out,
time
shout
I,
out to the cookies too.
you hear them now. Every time I do
Oh yeah, yeah.
every time I do an interview, my cat Morris does not appear. But with you and King, I think he loves the Iron Lord. He's got something with you guys.
Hey, he's about that ILP smoke, baby. That's
Yeah.
what he loved that.
When I watch the show, he sits next to me. So I'm like, he's probably like, yo, I know that
I
guy.
know this dude.
I'm like, as long as you don't scratch the TV, I ain't got no problem with you. But
Yeah, man.
that's exactly why I got this shirt on, because I know this is like one of the premier ones that got us into single player games at the beginning of our history.
Oh, for sure, man. Zelda's special. Zelda's so special. And the thing is, I'm a Sega kid, right? So it wasn't the first experience that I had, but I made sure, whether it's at friends' houses or getting NES and whatnot afterwards, NES and SNES, like I needed to have those experiences. Like for us, when we were younger, right? It wasn't fanboyism like, oh, I'm not messing with that other thing. It was like, damn, I wish I had that too. Like it was envy that you didn't have it. It wasn't like I mean, I wasn't about creating some narrative that made my thing better than yours. I wanted to play that too. And like, back then when you don't really understand what's good quality, sometimes you play anything. Yeah. I just wanted to play anything, and Zelda was that game that when I played it the first time, it was at first I was like, just because you're so used to playing side-scrolling stuff, right? It's like, oh, this is quality, right? Side-scrolling action games, platformers. To see a game like that kind of looked like an RPG, the character is really small and it was like an overhead sort of thing. I was like, what the heck is this? And then after watching like people play it a little bit and like the secrets and stuff like that, all of a sudden, oh, you blow up this bush and there's a secret entryway to an underground cave or whatever. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, that's awesome. Like, and then your imagination starts to run wild with you. And you're like, man, like when you're young, and especially, still a kid, a child of the 80s and 90s where you didn't have the internet and stuff like that.
You had to use this to find.
You had to use a lot of imagination. Like, you're playing with action figures and stuff, and you're still doing all that stuff. And it was just my imagination ran away with me. Whereas like, I remember getting Nintendo Power and imagining that the art for Zelda and Nintendo Power was the game, right? The art was awesome in the book, but the game didn't look like that, right? But in your mind, it looks like that. And you get lost and immersed in these worlds. And that's why I remember when Breath of the Wild came out, and I was like, this is the first time I've ever played Zelda where the image I had of Zelda from a little kid and what I imagined it to be and what I could do in this world came true, right? Because as a game, there've been other great Zelda games. I love Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess. Those games were amazing. Yeah, but there was still something about them it felt very just gamey, right? Whereas Breath of the Wild was the first time it was like, all right, just go out and do what you want to do. Yeah, it felt like an experience, right? Same way I talk about Red Dead 2, where it's like, I get lost in that world. Yeah. And that's the first time that feeling that I got from the original Zelda and what I wanted it to be actually came true. And then to me, yeah, man, Zelda's always going to be that. And I'm so excited for what Zelda's going to be in the future because they're going to continue. Obviously, yeah, I'm very excited. And to me, it's about the immersion. And to me, it's about getting lost in those worlds. And like, I don't try to sit there and like look at a game and be super critical of it, like, oh, when you play, you're going to like stuff, you're not going to like stuff, and you could talk about it. But for me, I like to give every game a chance. Like if I'm going to give you a chance, I'm going to throw it on, I'm going to give it a real chance. I'm going to throw the headphones on and I'm going to really give it a real chance. And if I like it, bien, y si no también. But it is one of those things where it's like, I just find joy in everything that has to do with gaming now, as opposed to like, oh, I'm not doing this, oh, this sucks or whatever. Like it is, and it's funny because we listen to us on the podcast, we argue back and forth or whatever, but that's part of the show. At the end of the day, we all love everything about gaming. We do.
You need the dynamic, because the dynamic is what makes it so cool. It's like me, every time I do an interview with famous people, when I did Katrina Law told me, you remind me a lot of Jimmy Kimmel. And I was like, yo, to me, that's an honor. Yeah. She's like, our interview with Kimmy Kimmel, and it's just, you got the same dynamic. You're not slow, you're not boring. She cracked she was laughing like crazy. She told me that, and I like, yo, To me, that's an honor. But that's what the same thing I see with you guys' show. You know, when I see you guys' show, I see me if I would do podcasts, which I don't because here in Puerto Rico, it's kind of hard to get people to like sit down and do these kind of things and all that. But when I watch the show, I'm like, yo, I'm watching me, but I'm watching me in English and with 4 different guys. So that's what gives the dynamic of the show, and that's what makes it so awesome. But yeah, and Red Dead, before we go to the next and last question, and Red Dead Redemption, the thing that I love so much was that you just riding on the horse.
Yeah.
Like, help. And you're like, see what happens. And you go, you're like, yo, you okay? Oh, please pick me up and take me to the city that's a mile away. Okay. And out of nowhere, the guy behind you puts a gun on your back.
Yeah.
Like, give me your horse. And I'm like, when did this guy learn how to do this stuff? And then another one, I found a dog. And I'm like, yo, I got follow the dog. I follow the dog. The dog put me in the middle of 3 guys with the gun, and I'm like, what in the? I was like, yo, Red Dead, I got to give it to you. You guys are creative with that open world.
It just, man. Again, it's that sort of like what they call like a immersive gameplay or emergent gameplay, right? Where it's like you're out in this open world and kind of anything could happen, and it's not predetermined really. Like, man, like and that sort of stuff. Again, it's exciting to see that sort of stuff in games. And when you sit there and like I said, you're really immersed in it. You have the sound is going on, and you're in the middle of the desert and it's quiet and you're just chilling. Like you have these small moments that are even like reflective and like beautiful moments. And at the same time, then you have the moments that you're talking about where it's like, I can't believe that happened to me. Like, why? Yeah. I remember, like, I'm in the middle of the desert, and all of a sudden, this lady comes out, damsel in distress. Help me, please. You get off your horse to help her, and behind the rock, there's 4 dudes about to stick you up. And I'm like, oh wow, I can't believe this. And like in Red Dead, you have things like you're searching for like the serial killer, like somebody who's leaving like dead body parts all the way around. There's so many mysteries out in the open world, things that like, are not labeled. And it's just like, wow, man. I love those type of experiences because it's like I go in and I lose myself and I don't know what's going to happen, in a way that's different. When you think about Rockstar games and what they've done for open worlds, right? I love the Assassin's Creed games and stuff as well, but those open worlds are more predictable, right? You kind of have an idea.
They're based off of history, and if you know your history, you're gonna know the process of the game.
Yeah, and even the behavior of like the characters and the NPCs and stuff like that. If you played Ubisoft open world games, you kind of get an idea of how they're going to behave and stuff like that. And they're not emergent in the way that a Grand Theft Auto is or Red Dead is. So, for me, I love all those types of games, but for me, it's the ability to just be able to sit down and lose myself in it completely because it allows me to detach. I work hard. I work a lot of hours. I just, yeah. It's like you remember the Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck when he would get home at night and put himself in like into the anti-sensory chamber. It's like I can't be around anything. Like I just need
everything away from me.
Yeah, exactly. It's that sort of thing where I like to get lost in that stuff because that's kind of that's how I recharge batteries. You know what I mean?
That's good.
Yeah. So that's it. That's definitely it, man.
Everybody needs that. See, for all of those that thought the same thing of me, that he had no brother, he was just like the single child. We all know that it was just to get away from stuff. But that's nice.
Man.
It's good that you say that because there's probably people right now that are living through experience that they're probably in a relationship that is not working, and they're probably like, "Do I stay or do I go?" And hearing you and seeing how so happy you are right now because you took the decision to leave will probably help them out. So whoever's going through this kind of situation, unfortunately in a relationship, if both people don't work for the same outcome, it's not gonna work because
it's never gonna work. Yeah.
I know because I was it once that if in the relationship you are the one that gives 100%, it's not going nowhere. It has to be 50-50. You cannot overdo yourself and give her. It's like, yo, I gotta give her the world. I gotta do. And what does she give you? Oh, she don't give me
Yeah.
money.
And even that, I'll tell you this, like even the 50-50 thing sometimes, that's it's not reasonable to think it's always going to be 50-50, right? Because sometimes you're going to need more help and the other person's going to need more help, right? But it's just the understanding that that could happen and may happen, and being willing to deal with it and know that once you start holding things against each other and being resentful of stuff like that, you're done, right? You're done. So it's just, man, and for me, I needed to go through all the things that I went through as, a young married person to get where I am today. Like I just needed to that, otherwise I would not have been able to appreciate the moment my wife came into my life, because I wouldn't have understood it. I would not have been able to appreciate it and taken the opportunity to take that risk, because I just I wouldn't be mature enough, and I would have lost out on that opportunity. So, I think
have been living the
a
best
lot of times,
like you are now.
yeah, man. Yeah. So a lot of times, don't be afraid to fall, man. That's one thing I've really learned. Like when I was younger, I was afraid to like make mistakes, right? You're afraid to get things wrong or whatever, because you just think there's consequence to everything. And, in some instances, yes, there are consequences, but it's never life or death, or it's always you learning, right? And if you always take it positively, you're always going to learn from it. If something bad happens to you or whatever, you sort of regress into yourself, like I did at that point. It's hard because you start being resentful of things and you don't even understand why anymore. You're just mad.
Yep.
And it took me, like, again, reconnecting with the guys, reconnecting with other friends that I went to high school with and stuff. Cause I went to high school away from school, boarding school. So a lot of the people that I went to school with, those are like some of the closest people you're ever going to have in your life as well. The people that you share those sort of experiences with.
That's true.
And it's like, for me, being able to reconnect with those people allowed me to kind of open my eyes and get out of the stupor and move forward. So, my advice to anybody would be, man, if you do that sort of stuff, talk, yeah. Go to the people that care the most about you and let it out. And then just doing that is gonna make the path forward a lot clearer. That is for sure. That's one mistake that I will never make again in my life. Nah, man, no.
You can't keep stuff inside you, because
it
could blow, and it could blow in a negative way that you could probably harm the other person, or you'll harm yourself.
Yeah, that's for sure, man.
And I've already been there. Like the history, you guys. I'm sure I explained to you. My first single CD was dedicated to a best friend I had that her husband killed her. So I know by far that if you don't talk, or if you want to leave and the other person doesn't let you leave, then there's a problem.
Yeah, man.
You can't stick there. You can't stick there, because it's just gonna end up like my friend, or who knows.
That's horrible. Yeah, that's
horrible place.
Yeah.
But it's life. We have to learn from it. So, Sovereign, in what moment in particular of life did you know that you were good at talking, and that because I always say, you do not know, you have to know you're good at something before you try it. Like, before I started to do interviews, I already knew I was good, because I was into acting school. And when I had to interact with the other person acting, it fluid. So I said, I can do interviews because I'm good at it. So in one moment in time in life, did you know that you were good at doing podcasts? And when did you guys decide to start working on podcasts? Because I know King David had his side of why he did it, but why did you do it? And when did you know that you were going to be good at it?
I'm going to be honest. I appreciate anybody saying that I'm good at it, because I'm learning on the fly right now. You know what I mean? Like, I did not think when Cog asked me and King to be on the podcast and be regular parts of the podcast, I was reluctant, just because I was like, I don't know that I could do this. I had already guested on the podcast, like maybe once, maybe twice at that point. And, I spoke like myself, right? I think like I said before, like I went to boarding school, and that afforded me a very good education, and as somebody who was shy in life, it opened me up a lot because it put you in situations where you had to learn to speak and just come out of your shell. I think I mentioned this before on the podcast, where there was a moment where I had a teacher who was like a public speaking teacher. And what they would do is they would put a podium. There was a big pond in the center of the campus, and there was like the post office, a little post office for us right in that area. So everybody walks by there every single day. He put a podium out there and have you stand on that podium and speak, read a speech or whatever, something that you wrote, whatever, but speak in front of everyone that walked by, right? Yeah. And in a lot of ways that teaches you just to not be afraid of having that spotlight on you. But for me, I've always naturally been kind of a shy person. So those experiences kind of got me out of that shell. But again, what happened was, after coming out of school and then going through the things that I went through in my first marriage or whatever as a young adult, I kind of regressed back into the show. I was like, I don't feel confident in anything about myself.
Bust out.
I was just like, You're like, no, exactly. This is so it was, I wasn't exactly. So I knew at that point, I knew that I could speak fairly eloquently or whatnot. I could express myself, but I wasn't really one to do it. So, and that's kind of been who I am up until this point, where it's just like, I speak if I need to, and I'm a fairly reserved person, and I can express myself very well, but I'm not the type of person that really was seeking out that spotlight in any way, shape, or form. Okay. So the podcast comes on, and Cog invites me and King on separate occasions to come on as guests. And I'm like, oh, this is cool, man. This thing, you talking about games or whatever. He was really excited about it. And then so when the situation sort of changed where they wanted to transfer the podcast from just a Destiny podcast to a general gaming podcast, there were two other lords that were there, Lord SWAT and Lord Sleet, who original members of the Destiny sort of IronLords podcast. They really couldn't continue with the show for, scheduling, whatever, life stuff. It was hard for them to continue regularly with the show. So at that point, Cog was like, yo, he asked me and he asked Kings, like, yo, you guys want to come on and be regulars on this IronLords podcast, and we can make it about, general gaming and whatnot. And I was nervous. I was like, I don't know if I could do this, because the times that I had been on the show was like, I remember talking about Resident Evil 7, and, again, I could speak eloquently about it, but there's a difference in, if I'm speaking to you eloquently like this about Resident Evil 7, that doesn't resonate necessarily. Whereas opposed to, you learn to have like a public voice or a podcasting voice where you're a little bit louder than you would be. You kind of emphasize, right? You emphasize and you enunciate and stuff like that. So that's stuff that I just, in the beginning, I was afraid that that's just not me, right? And what's weird about it is, much like when we were young, I think King sort of going through that experience with me at the same time helped, because we were both sort of figuring it out. By that time, even in Cog and Addict as well, they didn't have the voices they have now, right? Where when we all speak with a certain level of sort of like just confidence in what we say, right? As opposed to like, well, we don't really speak like that anymore. And that's just an evolution of doing it now for, obviously 4 years compared to a lot of other people. The podcasting is not a lot, but it definitely is enough for you to find your voice and to be confident in speaking up and, saying what you have to say and trying to be as eloquent as you possibly can be when you speak about these things. So for me, I surprised myself, to be honest. I was like, I can't believe that I'm doing this, and I feel good about how I'm doing it. I feel good about the fact that, they tell you never read the comments, but sometimes you read the comments. You want to see what people say or whatever, even if it's bad, like you want to see it.
The nice thing about your public is that the comments, they're good comments,
right?
They're not like
constructive mostly. Exactly.
Yeah. If you go to other other shows or whatever,
Yeah.
the comments will be like, you suck, or oh, PlayStation's better.
Yeah.
Oh, these guys with the Xbox. And so when I
Yeah.
read you guys' comments, I'm like, yo, your public is very
They're very
mature.
supportive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're supportive and they're very mature. And I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
that's
And
nice.
and another thing that helped is just the fact that, like I said, when we were young, we had that dynamic of smack talking back and forth. There was a lot of competition.
You already
It's
know
like
how to hit this
King,
round.
yeah, King brought it to another level as well. So, we realized that not too long after, we realized the dynamic was still there with us, right? The dynamic, it was like actually just slipping on a glove or whatever. Like you just remember, is that muscle memory of how the banter goes back and forth. And because with us, there's that history there, there's that respect there, there's that love there. It
So
just
much
comes
fun.
back naturally.
Yep.
And it's so much more easy because it's just a natural thing. And an addict, even though he didn't grow up with us, he fits into that so perfectly as well, because addict likes that smoke too. So and it's just a matter of it just works. It just works. And we're thankful for that, because if it doesn't, it's obvious. Like if it doesn't work, the people listening are going to let you know it doesn't work. Right. And, thankfully for us, it just works. There's no formula to it per se. We're just lucky in that the shared history we have has brought us to this point where we can sort of let everybody see what we've been doing for the past, since we've been little kids, and it's just natural to us. Yeah, exactly. So it's just natural to us, and it's cool that so many people gravitate to it, because you realize, like I said before, with the the Xbox gaming and stuff like that. You grow up and you're in this bubble. You think it's just you. Oh, we did this, we did that. And when you start hearing the stories of people that had the exact same experiences, and it's like all of a sudden now now that forms community around you, and it forms. There's a bond there that happens when people have experienced those same things, and they've gotten the same things out of it. Right? When you have there are points in your life that you remember specifically because of what you were doing in that moment, where you were, who you were with, right? Those points always stick out in your mind. And for me, a lot of those points are game related to hanging out with my boys. And I'm glad that we have that camaraderie still, that we didn't turn into a bunch of dry old men when we got older, whatever.
It happens.
And because it does happen too. But again, I'm just glad that people like it, because you never know how people are going to react to you, right?
That's the scary part.
But at the end of the day, yeah, that's the scary part, right? Because, again, you're a human being. You don't like to, anybody to run you through the mud or whatever. But to be frank, though, just the opportunity to be able to hang with these guys and have that dynamic again, like we used to when we were young, is kind of enough for me. Like, it's kind of enough for me, because we lost that for so long, right? So, to experience that it's a special thing, man. And I'm just, I'm happy and sort of taken aback every time I think about the fact that, we're going on 5 years or whatever. That's crazy. Where's the time gone?
Life is, it's like the old people say, life is too short. A day becomes an hour becomes a second becomes infinite amount of time. My grandfather always said it, and he's right.
It's true.
When he told me that, I was 9 years old and I'm 36. Where did time go? But the beauty of life, the beauty of time, is to have those kind of moments you're talking about, and to be able to relive them. It's even better, and that's why the magic. When I watch you guys, it reminds me a little bit about NBA on TNT. When you see Shaq and you see Charles Barkley on one side, that's Attic and King, right there. And I'm like, he's like, you guys are the NBA Iron Lords on.
Yeah, but it just works, man. It just works. And the funny thing is, when you think about our personalities, we haven't really changed a lot. Like, in terms of who we are as people, like, you mature, you change, obviously you grow up, but our personalities are kind of the same, which is weird. I didn't realize it till a while back. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're still kind of the same people. You know what I mean? You just older, grayer versions of that, or whatever the case may be.
Como diría los viejos, you're a kid inside of an older body still.
Yeah, exactly, man. And it's good to be able to be that. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, bro, how many people can say, yo, I get to sit down and talk with my friends about video games? And I'm 45 years old. I'll be 46 in January. I am 45 years old. And I get to sit down every week and talk about video games with my friends. Like that's crazy, man. That's crazy. You have to be able, you have to look at that and be like, wow, I'm blessed because, you know, I can talk about this stuff and not worry about, and literally put aside my adult stuff for a couple of hours and be this kid again. It's a special thing. It's a special thing. So we're grateful for all the support that we have. We're grateful to everybody that sits in that chat and you know, and engages with us. Like it's a very special dynamic that I don't know happens. It doesn't happen exactly the same way in any other way. Like this is a special thing. And I think Cog saw it in a way that I didn't see it at first, but yeah, now I wouldn't have it any other way though.
Carnito comes from the future. He already saw you guys later. He already knew what was going to happen. He was
Cog and King is very Cog is the type of dude, like he's focused on getting something done and he gets it done. And King is the dreamer, right? King is the one that imagines something and then puts it into action. But he imagines the biggest and the greatest stuff. He's like, this is where we're gonna get. And I have no doubts about it. Yeah. A bacon gym. So yeah, man, it's a special thing, and I'm not gonna sit here and say that it's not special because it is. Again, and it's just so funny that it comes that for us, it's like this is just who we are. This is what we've always done, and to have people be like, "Yo, I love this," I'm like, I can't believe it. Like,
but I'm gonna tell you the truth. The true thing, the true magic. I've been in the industry for 15 years, 16 coming soon. I've seen everything. I've worked with artists and I've worked with singers and I've worked with politicians. The thing that makes things live longer, and the reason why you guys have gone 5 years and probably go 20 years when you're probably gonna be 70 years and be like, this PlayStation
give me them knees.
Give me the knees, but let me get out of my chair. I'm too old and I gotta roll around. But the thing is, the magic that you guys have, it's not fake. You know, it's real.
Yeah.
And when it's real, it's something that catches the attention and gives and you know and makes people want to keep watching and keep coming and all that. It's like I told King. I first heard of you guys on Mr. Boom show because King was there. And then I watched it and I was like, yo, this guy's crazy. And he's like, yo, follow us this Sunday on the Irons. And I start watching and I'm like, yo, let me hit subscribe, hit this. And since that day for me, I always try to watch it live. If I can't watch it live, then I watch it pre-recorded. But you guys, the magic and el dinamismo, what you guys do things, dude. I know famous people. I know what is what, and trust me, you guys got it. And
thank you, man. I appreciate that, man.
And I'm proud that you guys are Latinos, which makes this even better.
Yeah, man. I gotta represent, man. It's funny, like I told you before, like a lot of the stuff that I learned about kind of being I won't say I've never been a bad person, but you know, when you sort of introvert yourself a little bit, like when you're going through some stuff and you don't want to be bothered with the outside world, you tend not to see or have empathy for the things that other people are going through because you're just kind of caught up in your own world. Yeah. And I think like, obviously through my wife, because my wife is like the best person I've ever met in my life. And she makes she makes me better by just being with me. That's not hyperbole. That is the absolute truth because of the type of person that she is. And I say the same thing about my brothers on the show, where it's like, Cog has always been that dude. He's the dude that he's always been the shoulder to cry on for people. Like when people have an issue, you go to Cognito and he has a way about making you feel better about it. That's just the way he's always been. And, when him and Addict sort of started ILP and they kind of said what the direction they wanted it to go in. It was one of those things where I kind of fell in line very quickly. Like you don't want to let them down at all. Right. So when he talks about, hey, unity in the gaming space and this, that, and the other, he means it, and you get excited about it as well, because he means it, and he means it from the heart. He doesn't mean it as a publicity thing. He doesn't mean it to get clicks. He means it from the heart, because I know this man. I know who he is at his core, and I know that when he says stuff like that, he really means it because he's lived it. And that's what I say. When I look at our personalities, they haven't changed really at all. That dude is the same man. Like the same sort of support he provided to a lot of kids or whatever as we were growing up is what he does now. And he's created that environment on ILP, and I know for myself, like it's just it's opened my eyes to be like, wow, all of these people online, there are a lot of people that come to us and listen to us. They're going through their own personal things. And I've gotten DMs from people like, yo, man, you have no idea what just listening to you guys today has done for me. And it's like, wow. And at that point, for me, I know King feels the same way. I know Attic feels the same way. And I know Cog feels the same way. After a while, you feel like it's your responsibility to uphold that. Yes, it's your responsibility. Like, you know what?
That's true. We
have to be here for these people. Obviously provide the entertainment. But when you start seeing what it means to a lot of other people, and everybody takes something different away from it.
That's true.
It becomes a responsibility that you're proud to have, and I credit, the people around me that have made me better and care about stuff like that. I credit them with that, because, a different a different life could have made me completely apathetic to that stuff. And that's not how I feel. Like that stuff is very important to me, and to see it sort of come to fruition and stuff like that. Like it's big, man. It's big. Like sometimes at the end of our shows, right, when we do our outros with whatever, like I'll say a little something maybe about the guest, whatever. King will do the same. We'll all have our little, and it oftentimes gets a little bit sentimental, because the thing about it is, the people we have on our show, in a lot of ways, whoever they are, wherever they come from, whether it's an executive at a gaming studio, or a developer, or a content creator, or whatever, everybody started with the same thing. Everybody started with, I love games. I love games. And games mean something special to me because of X, Y, Z, whatever the case may be. Escapism. I had a bad childhood. I had a great childhood. I have these amazing memories, or whatever the case may be. Games are so many things to so many people, that to be in a space where people want to sit down and listen to your anecdotes and stuff like that, and kind of just compare notes about what their experiences have been. It's a special thing that I think a lot of people don't think about when it's happening in the moment. Because a lot of times, like we were talking about before, Twitter beef and stupid things or whatever, fanboy wars, whatever the case may be. If you just dilute all of that and break it down, it's the love of the games and what they mean to us. That's why, you call me a man child. Cool. Yeah, I'm 46 years old. I'm still playing video games. But I am such a better man and adult for it. I am. I'm just a better person because of that experience. 100%.
I not too long ago, I had somebody say something to me, and I told them I'd rather be acting like a kid than being alcoholic like you. And that was like that was a right hook, left hook to the face, and then knocked them down and all that.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's funny. My wife, it's funny because she's like, I always know where you are. Like, I don't have to, my wife, she was never going to marry me if I was a machista or something like that. I was never going to go down, right? Never.
Nope.
And she says, like, one of the things that's besides the fact that you're an adult, 100%, you're a caring, loving adult, responsible, then you have this other side of you that you allow to be the child and still feel wonderment over this thing that you've been doing for the past, whatever, 45 years of your life. And it's still so integral to your life. But, a lot of people looking at it from the outside in are like, that's a kid's thing. And it's just like, they don't understand. They don't understand. And it's like, for me, like, I'm just so glad that games, the games have come back and become this, because I was alive when Atari tanked.
Yeah, terrible.
We didn't know. nobody wanted any piece with nobody wanted any parts of video games, right?
Especially
to the point that when the NES, especially United States, especially if you remember when the NES came out, they tried to sell it as a toy and not a video game because the name video game was so associated with, you know, whatever, E.T. and the fall of Atari and all this other stuff that was unfair, but whatever. That's, you know, sometimes, you know, perception becomes reality.
It's true.
And to see it come back the way that it did, like it makes me emotional because I'm not the person I am if that comeback doesn't happen. I'm just not.
It's true. I'm the same way. If that comeback wouldn't have happened, those moments that I had with my cousins and our friends playing Halo for console versus console and all that wouldn't have happened. What would we would have never had fun. We would have never been together because there was not going to be that vehicle that would have joined us. We would have just drifted off since we were young, and I would have probably been, because I've always been depressed when I was a kid, and that helped me like to take away the depression, because when I would feel depressed, I had them right there, and they were like, forget about whatever's happening to you, get that controller, let's shoot somebody, and
you'll feel better.
You feel better. Shoot me, you feel better. But if that wouldn't have happened, you know, it's just like I told you about Joel, which after that day that I sniped him, I got the betrayal he won. He didn't want to play with me no more. He was like, I'm never gonna play in the same team as you. But if that moment would have happened, we would have never been friends because we didn't know each other until that moment. The moment I sniped him and I got that betrayal was the moment we became friends.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
none of this stuff would have happened.
Yeah, it's a special thing, and I think anybody who's part of it, who loves it, like my nephew's 9 years old, and he's like he's loves games. He's a big Pokemon head. Like right now, he doesn't really get out of that. Yeah, he just loves Pokemon. That's his focus, right?
That's how he starts.
But to see the passion, exactly. To see the passion that he has, though, and the way he talks about games and the way he breaks them down. It's heartening to me because I'm like, I get it, man. I get it. And when he talks to me about it, he knows that I'm listening. And I'm like, I can't believe I don't understand the damn thing he's telling me because he talks to me about Pokemon like an encyclopedia. Like,
it was 150. Now they're almost 700. He went
he's like, and this one evolves into this one, and this one has this power, and it works well against this power. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm just like, but I'm excited that he is passionate about something like that because it's like para mí sabe, gaming es completamente sano. Like anything, it's about moderation, right?
Exactly.
It's about moderation and balance. Like anything, you can become addicted to anything. That is true. But I think at its core, what it creates, like the camaraderie that it can create, although, you know, we live in a different world now, so it's not the same. But the sense of like accomplishment you can get and like self-esteem and stuff. A lot of those things can be built through gaming, right? And I think sometimes you get parents sort of immediately look at it and be like, oh, it's a time waster, this, that, and the other. They're not seeing and understanding everything that it provides. So I can't wait to have, you know, kids and be able to impart that to them, you know, because it's, you know, just doing it now with my nephew is so much fun because I'm like, yeah, why don't you try this? See this game, see this original Zelda, try that out. Like go try out Link to the Past or something like that. And I want to see him see that and like see that he can be able to find a secret in the world. But like, oh wait, hold up, this is not quite what it seems like. That sense of discovery. It's just, man, it's a beautiful thing to see. And, you know, I'm just, again, like I said, I'm blessed to be able to sit around with my friends and talk about games at 45 years old. You know, it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me.
And that is why I'm going to make a game just to be on the show. You heard me, Carnito. I'm going to make a game. It's going to be a game of a dot moving around, but I'll be a developer so I can partake in this.
Yeah, man. Oh, man. No need. Your trajectory speaks for itself, brother. There's no need for that.
I'm glad to hear that because I was really thinking about making a dot game. I'll be like, yo, Cornelius, now
You
you
ever heard
have
this game?
now you have to add me because I made a game.
It's Pong 2. You ever heard of Pong 2?
But it's in Spanish. It's pong,
Pong dos, pong dos, pondo. Vamos poniendo.
Yeah, but yeah, what you just said, it made me feel calm because I was like, I gotta find a way to be in there, even if it's hey, what's up? Cancel that guy, get out of the show.
Nah, man.
It'd be an honor,
Absolutely honored to have you, man. We're about lifting each other up, man. That there is no diva stuff with us or anything like that. We're about lifting each other up because again, we're blessed to be where we are, and that's because other people gave us chances. Other people gave us chances. A lot of people that had no business being on our podcast when they're super big, whatever, however many followers, whatever, and they came on to our show.
Yeah, like the one of the people from Obsidian. That one was, I was like, wow, Obsidian people.
Yeah, man. That's a big shout out again to Cog and shout out to Dizzy, who's not with us anymore. But that whole idea of taking Dizzy's original site, which is I don't want to. I think it's fast. It's fast back game, something like that. I don't want to
bosh it.
Yeah, but to playback gaming. To take that and be willing to sort of build ILP on top of that and log that, on top of that, and to allow it to grow into what it's become now, where now, it's still small, but we're getting review codes. We're getting review codes like the big outlets are getting. Like that's such a big thing, man. Like
once you hit that, you're golden. They
exactly.
These game publishers, they don't give codes to anybody. So
yeah,
if you do that, you're golden.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful thing to see how that stuff has grown, and it's the community that's been there. There's the people that gave us chances when we were just starting out, and just a willingness to help one another. Sometimes in this community, you don't see that. You're like, man, what the people are kind of afraid of someone else's success or of helping someone else that might leapfrog them or whatever, because that's the thinking.
Artemis Code.
Yeah. I'm gonna leave that one right there. But yeah, man. But that's not our MO, man. That's not our MO at all. So any help that we can provide to anybody to shine a spotlight on their careers, what they've done, what they're trying to do, hey, man, that's what we're there for. That's what we're there for. Because it's always going to be a great conversation, and we do our best. And Cog, shout out to Cog for the preparation that he has of getting down to the core of who that person is, what they've done, right? But a lot of times what happens is like he has a set thing about their career, what they've done, whatever, how that relates to gaming, whatever. And then you'll see King, Addict, myself, whatever, we all come in with the questions that kind of round it out and make and so we get a picture of this person as a person, not just as this executive or not just as whatever this person has done, whatever. And I think people feel comfortable when they come on the show, like when they do that. I think we do a good job of making people just feel like right at home, like they're hanging out, chilling with their boys. And
it does work because, you know, a lot of these executives and these people, like the people that work in the city and all that, when they get interviewed for a newspaper or something else, it's like, what are you working on? When is it coming out? Okay, goodbye.
Yeah.
They're not like, who are you? Where do you come from? What did you do in the past to be who you are now? And that's something that in my interviews I've always done. You know, when I start asking those crazy questions, the people that watch the show, they're like, what? That Rake went through this to do that?
Yeah. It's you never know what's gonna come out then, right? You know what I mean? But it's gotta be a comfortable setting. It's gotta be a setting where the person just feels like, or the people feel like, hey man, I'm just amongst friends, like we're just talking. They're not gonna use this against me. They're not looking to get something out of me or whatever. It's just a conversation. And that's unfortunately that is not necessarily the norm all the time. So you know.
Yeah. I've worked in Telemundo. This is
everything has a purpose. So.
The norm is the now, where are you screwing up in life, and with how many men or women you have been.
Oh my God.
You get those 3 questions out of somebody and you are golden. And
exactly.
It's sad because you're hurting another person just for ratings.
Yeah.
No, I'm ever since Hurricane Maria came, we lost our spot on TV. I have not gone back. I'm like, yo, I don't I don't want to work on TV anymore because I just know, I already know how it is, and I can't personally do it because I have my own demons. I've lived through things, and I would not like as a singer. I've had interviews as a singer, and I've been blessed that the people that have interviewed me, they do not ask about specific stuff, because if they would, it's not fun. It's not fun.
It's not fun at all. It's not fun at all. And I just think, but again, sometimes, like I said, for me, I'm kind of an open book when it comes to that stuff. I'm happy to sort of delve into these topics that maybe are too personal for some people, whatever. Because for me, like I think the things that I've been through, again, I'm not trying to say like I've been through the craziest stuff ever, whatever, but any sort of advice you can impart to somebody who may need to hear it or whatever, I'm happy to do, because it's like I'm at a point in my life where I feel like I understand things a little bit better than I ever have before.
That is true. It's like when one has lived through so many things, you already know. It's like I'm trying to help certain people that want to get into the media. So I give them like, yo, if you want to do something, you have to unfortunately block out the noise. Every person that is negative, that is trying to harm you, you must block them. You must have your vision. It's your vision. You can't let anybody from outside try to deviate you, because the moment that you deviate, everything that you work for is gone. And I've been there because I've had people that have hated me. That women love those K-pop artists. They die for those Koreans. Every Korean that's come to Puerto Rico, I've had them on my show. So Fantastic. I've had hate mail. I've had women telling me they're gonna find where I live.
Jeez.
That is why I don't use my real name. I learned, don't you use your real name, because you're gonna get into trouble. So
I had a couple people in my government out there, so it is what it is. But that's why I try to stay, as clean as possible.
Oh, you know it. They find out your real name, they will search you in every kind of single way. They will try to find your social security, where you were born, and they will find dirt on you, and they will harm you. So it's like my real name, I keep it to myself. I never give it. I never get it. That name right there, that's not my real name. It's not my real name.
Hey, man. When you're online, it's sad, but it's true, man. It's a dangerous space, whether you're an adult, a child, whatever the case may be. It's just a dangerous space. And everything, you're risking something every time you go out there and put yourself out there, right? There are a lot of positives to it, but there's negatives as well.
Unfortunately, but talking about that, the positive thing before we leave is that you guys help the community, the video game community, to have this Sunday to meditate, to enjoy, to laugh. To what I like about you guys is that all the news you guys have given, I've already read them. I all the news. I already know everything. But I just want to hear the way you guys interpret the information, or what King thinks about what Sega and Xbox thinks is gonna happen, which Sovereign is like, yo, until this and this comes out of their mouth, I am not partaking.
Exactly. There you go. Exactly. You know how it is, man. For me, listen, anything Sega related, if you give me old Sega and bring back the stuff that I love, where do I bend the knee? I'm gonna bend the knee. It ain't that yet. Shout out to the latest episode of the IronLords Podcast.
That's true. You're like, Fantasy Star Online is not the day. Your goose is not the thing? Where is my Shinobi? Where is my Sonic? Where is my
where's my golden axe? Where's my golden axe? Where's my
go.
Street Fighter? Where's bring that stuff back, man, in a real way. Like give me a golden axe RPG, like a real like golden axe RPG. Take Shinobi and turn it into like the new Tenchu, or turn it into the new Ninja Gaiden or whatever. Like do that. Like
they can do it, yo. You put Sega with Ninja Theory and you do Shinobi. You put Sega with Obsidian and you got your Dragon Age. Oh, it's so easy to do, man.
Yeah, man. Imagine bringing back a real Phantasy Star RPG, because Phantasy Star Online is cool. I like Phantasy Star Online.
Yeah, but it's an MMO.
Right. It's exactly.
It's not the old one of the NES. No,
exactly.
They're cool. They're cool. I have fun. I partake every once in a while. I'll probably log in, do a couple of missions, but it's not the same thing like those OG NES Final Fantasy type games that you were like, yo, this is Final Fantasy in space. This is way before Star Ocean came out.
And that's the thing, right? Phantasy Star was special because it was sci-fi. It was a sci-fi RPG at a time when everything was fantasy, right? It was a straight up fantasy.
It was fantasy, or was the medieval times with knights
exactly.
and queens and all that. And these people are like, no, we're gonna take it to space. And then came Star Ocean and robbed their thunder.
Yeah.
Star Ocean is literally Phantasy Star, but
not as good. Not as good.
Unfortunately, King. I heard you on the IronLords podcast you guys did a couple of days ago. That Star Ocean, the new one, did not capture me. I'm sorry, King. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just give me Phantasy Star. Then we'll be fine then.
Phantasy Star, the game, and I'll be so cool. Well, Lord Sovereign, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Where can the people find you? Where can the people find the IronLords podcast? Before I let you go, because I know you got stuff to do.
I told you I got laundry to do. I'm like, oh man. No, man. But first of all, like, un placer estar aquí contigo. ¿Verdad? Muy agradecido de la invitación, and I'm just anytime I get to sit down and just talk life with people in general, and people who support us and love what we do, I'm all for it, man. So just I appreciate the things that you've done in your career, and I'm just very, very grateful for the opportunity to sit here and talk with you. So again, thank you. I appreciate that, my brother. You can find me, you can find me, Lord Sovereign ILP on Twitter. And you could find me at 11 a.m. Eastern time during football season on Twitter, on YouTube with the IronLords podcast. And of course, when football season is not in effect, we're at our normal time, which is 1 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube. Come check us out, man. Come check us out. It's a fun time every Sunday on the Lord's Day,
Y para todos los que estén en Puerto Rico, no es a las 11, es a las 12.
Es a las 12, exactamente.
Yo caí, pero voy a decir que estamos en Daylight Savings Time y el tiempo pasa. Así que todo el que lo esté viendo, que estás aquí en Puerto Rico, don't fall like I did, at las 12. But everybody else in the East Coast of the United States, you got it at 11. And if you are in the West Coast, you got to wake up a little bit more earlier, which would be at 8 o'clock. 9, 10, 11.
Yeah.
8 o'clock.
Bastante tempranito en el oeste, pero, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. We're going to make you laugh, that's for sure.
If I bring you guys here first before everybody else, there is a reason. Trust me. I do not, I'm not kidding. I do not work with anybody. It's just something that, when I work with Ismael Miranda, when I work with Tita Guerrero, when I work with Rake, when I work with Chayanne and all these people, they always told me,
oh my God,
good. You have to work with people that you know that is good. You have to choose the people. You can't let the TV channels and all that choose the people for you, because they're just going to give you anything. So, if I have these guys here, trust me, you guys are going to enjoy the show. So, nada, mi gente, ya saben, IronLords Podcast, lordsofgaming.net. for those of you that want to
Exactly. I always forget to shout out our website, Lords of Gaming. I know. I'm sorry. I apologize. Lordsofgaming.net. That is our website where we have reviews, editorials. We talk about obviously game reviews, but we do movie stuff as well. We talk about a number of different things in the industry. The writers at LogNet are absolutely amazing. These are guys that have been with us, have grown this site. This is a grassroots website. Nobody's getting paid to do any of this. It's just a bunch of passionate gamers who want to have their voices heard. And thankfully, they've come to LogNet to be part of what we're building. And to be, it's just so amazing to see where LogNet is now. So please, please, please go to lordsofgaming.net. Check us out. And obviously IronLords Podcast on YouTube every Sunday. Yeah, but brother, thank you so much, man. This has been an amazing time. Again, estoy ronco ya, pero I love talking, man. I love talking to you, man.
I got the same problem. That's why with the time I've been doing this, I've been singing since I was 5. I got techniques. And the most important technique for everybody who's listening, you get ginger. You cut that ginger and it's nasty. But trust me, you're gonna have the most angelical voice. You're gonna be like, oh, because it helps.
No, it's true. Yo me tomo un té de jengibre todos los días because thanks to my wife.
She knows.
Yeah, she knows.
She probably was a singer in her past life and you did not know that. Así que mi gente, Lord Sovereign, it was a pleasure to have you here, just like King David. Hopefully in 2022, 2023, 2024, before the world ends, I have an opportunity to be with you guys on your show, because that would be like mind-boggling. And after that, I can retire in peace. So, it's been an honor. I'm so glad that you accepted and took your time, because I know, before we go, that Jay Fonsorelli was like a year after you. Bonds, I got him in less time. Do not hate. So,
I still owe a lot of people. Well, but listen, when you do a pre-recorded thing, that's amazing, because I could fit that in somewhere. If we're live sometime, it's hard. It's hard. Shout out to Jay Fonz, because I think I've canceled twice on him. So the fact that we were able to manage to do it was fantastic. But shout out to everybody I still owe appearances to. I got y'all. Don't worry about it.
No es, like Daddy Yankee says, no es culpa mía. Que lo saben vino a mi programa.
Exactamente.
We're pre-recorded. You have Lord Sound whenever you want. So, nada, mi gente, ya ustedes saben, lordsofgaming.net, IronLords Podcasts Lord Domingo, Lord Sovereign to my left, if YouTube does not switch me. This is Robbie. You all see me, Mr. Real North South Talent. Así que nada, mi gente, hasta la próxima. Peace.